Du Bois's Talented 10, a story of Black flight. I often tell people that my 4 years at Morehouse College were among the best I've ever experienced throughout my brief lifetime. Having always attended pretty diverse schools growing up, the beauty of Morehouse College lay in the fact that it was authentically Black. Before Morehouse, I had never been surrounded by hundreds of intelligent Black males from all walks of life, who all shared the ultimate goal of being better men, Black men, for themselves, their families, and for their communities back home. And for a young 18-year-old, somewhat ignorant of the diversity that is the Black experience in the United States, I'd come to realize that I needed the house in the same way that a plant needs sunlight and water. I remember those 4 years as clearly as one remembers their first kiss or first car. I remember sitting in Professor Jackson's Calculus 2 class with no clue of what the difference between a tangent and cosine was, and hearing out the cracked window the barks from the members of Omega Psi Phi and the ski-weeds of the AKAs who came over from Clark. The countless hours me and the crew spent on the strip, posturing with loud banter, trying our best to get the slightest of glances from a group of cute Spelmanites walking by. I remember 1 a.m. pit stops at Stiegel's convenience store to get that number 3 wings combo, which had so much sauce on it that it would literally seep through the little white boat-shaped container it sat in. How colorful the yard would look when each of the Divine Nine celebrated their respective weeks throughout the Atlanta University Center campuses. I remember how everyone really didn't show up to the Morehouse-Miles College football game until an hour after it started because the halftime battle of the bands was the real show. I remember sitting in the stands watching Mahogany in motion as they captivated the minds of all freshman boys with their seductive yet elegant dance routines. The late night spent writing Professor Hornsby's essays only for him to return it to me weeks later with the grade stating that my analysis of the post-Reconstruction South was mediocre at best. There were the basketball games against Clark Atlanta that I attended with my fraternity brothers, anxious to hear F them N-words by Master P so that we could do our distros towards the other frats. House parties on Beckwith and Lowry, the taste of runny scrambled eggs in Chivers Hall, and how much better the food tasted during parent weekend. I remember the debates I was privy to in King Chapel, sitting there amazed at how articulate my fellow peers were on topics I had no clue about. But it wasn't confined to King Chapel. Similar debates would often fill the air in every hallway of every dorm on campus. I remember hearing Maynard Jackson and Ray Charles impart their infinite wisdom on us during Crown Forum and becoming lost at the powerful and soulful sound of the Morehouse Glee Club singing, "Building Me a Home." I remember learning the real history about Dr. King's time there as a student during freshman orientation. I remember meeting my Spelman sister for the first time and learning that she was an actual princess in Africa. And I will never forget standing in front of Dr. King's statue with the entire incoming freshman class and hearing President Massey say, "Look to your left and look to your right. One of you will not be here in 4 years." And though that proclamation was terrifying for most of us, we all knew it to be true. But I also knew that the other brother next to me, who would be lucky enough to make it all 4 years, would one day be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a senator for his state, or the next Arthur Ashe. And it was that understanding of knowing that you were among the best of the best that Black America had to offer that gives Morehouse, the house, its aura of Black exceptionalism, even to this day. It is this very aura, this culture of expectation and excellence that makes me love dear old Morehouse. It is at the same time a source of immense frustration and disappointment, however. Let me explain. One of America's greatest intellectuals and co-founder of the NAACP, W.E.B. Du Bois, famously argued, that Black communities should send their best and brightest young men and women off to institutions of higher learning in hopes that they would flourish in the fields of medicine, law, and politics. Fields that at the time, and still today, were dominated by white Americans. He referred to this exceptional group of individuals as the talented 10. His belief was that once white America witnessed the accomplishments of the talented 10, they would have no other choice but to respect their white-collared Afro-American counterparts who were excelling right alongside of them. Thus, during a time when Blacks were being lynched in the Jim Crow South almost daily, and sundown towns warned their colored occupants to get out of town when the evening siren sounded, Du Bois had the audacity to demand respect from a country that never planned on showing any. So for me, the debate between Booker T. Washington's industrial approach to Black integration and Du Bois's talented 10th approach was never much of a debate. I've always sided with Du Bois. Maybe it's because I've always been drawn to the idea of belonging to an elite group of individuals. Or maybe it's because I've never felt white America had an inherent claim to the highest rungs of this society's ladder. Either way, I felt that Du Bois had gotten it correct, and schools like Morehouse, Spelman, and Howard only stood as examples of what he saw as America's top class of Black elites. It is for this very reason that I believe that we are letting Du Bois down in regards to the charge he laid upon the talented 10th of Black America. See, Du Bois believed it was the obligation of the Black elite to elevate their race. He writes, "The Negro race, like all races, is going to be saved by its exceptional men. The problem of education, then among Negroes, must first of all deal with the talented 10th. It is the problem of developing the best of this race that they may guide the mass away from the contamination and death of the worst." Which brings me to our current situation. First, let me start by saying that I could rattle off a very impressive list of individuals who have matriculated at our nation's top HBCUs and who are currently engaged in the upliftment of the race. From my graduating class at Morehouse alone, I have watched Bakari Sellers become one of South Carolina's youngest state congressmen and regular political analyst on CNN. I used to party and politic with prominent civil rights lawyer Stacey Lee Merritt and with my fraternity brother Courtney English, and have since watched them both rise to the highest rungs of American politics. English becoming the newest member of Atlanta City Council and former APS board chairman. And it brought me joy, great joy, to see my classmate Randall Woodfin become Birmingham's mayor during this past year's special election. I found great comfort in watching a number of my fellow Morehouse men and Spelman sisters go off and become educators, molding the future leaders of this great nation. Others have found their calling in the church and ministered to hundreds on Sunday mornings. Regrettably, however, my list, if constructed, as impressive as it would be, leaves much to be desired. Though most of the people I went to school with are doing very well for themselves, I find that a great number of them are minimally concerned with those of their race struggling to survive this endless rat race we call America. And this is the unfortunate reality that I have observed over the past several years. I asked a good friend of mine, a fellow Morehouse man, how much he planned to give to his illustrious alma mater, since it was that time of the year that most prestigious Black institutions reach out to their alumni for donations. His response was short and matter of fact. Nothing. They got enough out of me when I was there. And though many HBCU alum will have a brief chuckle at reading this or hearing this, because many of you would respond similarly, we tend to forget that it was our very own attendance at our Black colleges was only possible because of the sacrifices of others. Whether it was an aunt who wrote out a last-minute check because she wanted her niece to follow in her footsteps at Hampton, or a pastor who called for the congregation to pass the plate so the last installment of fees could be paid to Howard's financial services office. or a high school guidance counselor who took time from her busy schedule to make phone calls to Morehouse's registrar's office because she knew someone. Someone helped. Someone sacrificed. How then will the future Black leaders of America continue our legacy if we gave enough when we were there? I am, however, less concerned about sacrifices made for the brightest among our youth than for those who are not destined to further pristine steps of higher learning. That lost tribe of young Black boys and Black girls who will never see the gates of anyone's college because life has decided to deal them a hand stacked against them. Those young people who grow up impoverished, not only in their wallets, but also of their mind. What sacrifices are being made for that single mother working 2 jobs, only to be faced with the conundrum of whether she will pay the water or electricity bill that month? What sacrifices are being made for that 16-year-old girl who works her minimum wage job at McDonald's until midnight after 8 hours of school so that she can buy her 2 younger siblings' first day of school clothes and shoes because her addicted mother hasn't been home in 5 days and her father is incarcerated? Where are the aunties and pastors for her? I have had 12th graders in my class who cannot read. Yes, 12th graders. One could ask, how does something like that happen? How did this not get noticed by someone along the way? Though there were numerous reasons for why such travesties occur, oftentimes it's as simple as stakeholders, teachers, administrators, parents, etc., just pushing them through the cracks. I have witnessed expectations lowered to detestable levels by Black and white teachers alike. These students have not slipped through the cracks, they've been forcefully squeezed through them. And what role has the talented 10th played in this impasse? How many among us have taken the time to tutor a failing child in mathematics or taught a 2nd grader struggling to read with simple phonics? How many among us have volunteered at our local Boys and Girls Club or at a local soup kitchen? How many among us have donated money to a Pop Warner football team so they can afford new uniforms that they can take pride in, or taught a course on financial literacy to those in our community who absolutely need it most? And how many of us have decided to represent a victim of police harassment pro bono because that person couldn't afford proper legal representation? My exceptional brothers and sisters, I challenge you to do more, to give more, to sacrifice more. If there was one thing that Morehouse taught me, it was that hope is one of the most powerful forces on this earth. It was hope that carried slaves through their days on the cotton fields of Savannah, Georgia. It was hope that pushed MLK to continue his fight for equality when others around him pleaded for him to stop. It was hope that saw the grandchildren of former slaves witness with their own eyes a young Black senator from Illinois become the president of the United States of America. It was hope that W.E.B. Du Bois wrote about when he talked about the talented 10th. And it was that same hope that I beheld when I walked on the campus of Morehouse College and saw America's finest young men and women destined for greatness. I still have faith that we will go back and uplift the less fortunate. I will end this writing by posing a question I always ask my mentorship group. If not you, then who?